Thank you for Patreon now for donating to the Patreon. Hey guys, this video is all back in another card fight Vanguard deck profile. If you guys enjoy, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and donate to the Patreon. Let's get one started. Today, we have Kagero, Blazing Flare, deck profile. So, Kagero is in... So Kagero, we had, instead of getting like a grade 1, a grade 2, and a grade 3, we had 3 grade 3s, which means I could have just been content with making them all in one deck and trying to fix them all together, which you could do in theory. I could have done 2 different decks, or instead, what I did is I made a version of every single Kagero with those cards. I made a Dauntless deck, I made a Lawkeeper deck, and I made a Blazing Flare deck. Blazing Flare being the one that you would think is the most support grade 3 out of the ones, but in my opinion is like obviously under Reverse, because Reverse set the bar pretty high, is probably the best Kagero card ever to exist. Not counting, or not to exist, sorry, but like, that came out of the set, is one of the top cards that came out of the set, minus the Reverse Boy up here, because Dauntless set the bar high. So let's go ahead and get this deck started, shall we? First up, our starter today is Lizard Runner Undeux, 6k base, 10k shield, grade 0 with boost, auto, and upon draw a card, then if your opponent's Vanguard's grade 1 or grade, you could quick shield, take it to your hand. Standard starter ability, nothing too special about it, you get a draw, you get a quick shield. You run this as your starter because you're not playing Overlord, you don't deserve Comro, and if you use Comro, you're a traitor to the United States of Kagero. So, yeah, that's why Undeux is our starter. Then we have Communism, baby. I don't know why I said that. Anyways, then we have our trick lineup, which is 8 crit, 4 draw PG, and Wyvern guard Barri. 5k shield, grade 0 with boost, 0 shield, 5k power. Continuous sound annoying, you have 4 sounds in your deck. Auto guard circle when places card from your hand. Choose one of these, cannot be done battle. Okay, standard PG, nothing too special about it. You could run 12 crit and one of them be crit zone. You could do that. You could force your opponent to guard everything. Here's why you don't, though, because like, you can nuke their board. They have to constantly commit enough hand. You can just pick Force 2. Your rear guard's hit for decent numbers. You can also guard restrict. You don't really need the extra crits. What you need is draw so that you can make sure that you have the overall rear guard advantage, because nuking their board does nothing for you if you have no rear guards to call to begin with. So, you know, keep the draw PG. If you want to change it out for the crit, you can, but keep the at least 8 crits as well for the reasons of pushing with extra criticals. And then heal trigger. I don't need to go over why I don't like the heal guardian, but in case I do, I don't like heal guardians because they go against my playstyle. I'm not going to explain what it is again because I've explained it enough, and considering I'm recording these one after another, for you guys they're going up on different days, for me they're going up, for me I'm doing them all right next to each other, so I'm not going to bother explaining it again. But the main thing is that it goes against my playstyle, and the 20 shield compared to the 15k shield between a regular heal and a heal guardian, the 20k always helps a lot more. That 5k genuinely makes a difference in the grand scheme of things, I promise you. But if you want to run the heal guardian, you can run the heal guardian. There's no reason not to, unless you are someone like me where the heal guardian is detrimental to your playstyle. Next up, we have our grade 1s. 4 copies of Flame of Hope Aermo, 8k base, 10k shield, grade 1 with boost. Continuous rear guard during the battle that it boosted. This unit gets +3, and auto rear. When your opponent's rear guards retired during your turn, retire this unit, draw a card, counter charge 1. Okay, so 11k booster at all times is really good. It doesn't matter what grade either you or your opponent are at, it's an 11k booster, which is all around really good. And then auto rear, when your opponent's rear guards retired during your turn, you can just kill it to get a draw and a counter charge. If you don't remember, Blazing Flare can nuke the board, so nuke the board, kill itself, draw a counter charge, and because one of your cards is a counter blast, I guess it's helpful. My thing with this is, though, like, I wish it was a soul charger, because Blazing Flare, you can only nuke the board once with this deck, and consistently, without your opponent getting involved. So Aermo, like, I wish it could soul charge, but either way, it's still a nice grade 1 to have, because it gets you that counter charge. So with all the other counter blasters, in case you don't want to use Blazing Flare too much, you can rely on Aermo to fix the counter blast and to get you a draw. So 4 of. Next up, we have Lava Flow Dragon, grade 1 boost, 10k shield, 8k base. Continuous Vanna rear guard during your turn. If you have more rear guards than your opponent, this unit gets +5, and auto Vanna rear. When placed from hand, look at top 5, reveal up to 1 grade 3 from among them, put them into your hand and shuffle your deck. If you put a card, you gotta discard 1. Standard grade 1 searcher ability, pretty decent. You normally discard the quick shield for your search if you add something to hand, and you can just call this during the first turn. You can go ride whatever you want. Call this to rear guard, boom, you have more rear guards than your opponent, because I highly doubt they're going to call more rear guards than you are. Boy becomes a 13k base, and if you have 2 of them, 13k on both Vanguard and rear guard. Lava Flow, honestly, is a really good grade 1. Really good in the early game and in the late game in a deck that can just nuke the board whenever they fucking feel like it. Yeah, Lava Flow is just a really good grade 1 and easy 5k to have on board, so 4 copies. And then our last grade 1 is 4 of Wyvern Strike Garan. Grade 1 boost 10k shield, AK base. Continues rear guard during your turn if your opponent has no rear guard 6+5. Okay, I've been over it enough. This deck can nuke rear guards whenever it feels like it. And so that's an easy 5k. And auto rear, when the attack it boosted Wyvern Strike Doha hits, counterblast 1, draw a card, soul charge 1. The reason why this is here is because Doha can search it. And it's really easy to get them to 0 rear guards. And Doha and Garan both have abilities when the opponent has 0 rear guards. And this thing also is a counterblast in a not so very counterblast heavy deck. And even if it was, Aermo fixes whatever problem that is. And it nets you a draw and a soul charge if the attack does hit of a card that can guard restrict. So Garan is pretty good. Really nice support card. Gives us soul, gives us hand cards, and gives us power. 4 of. 2 copies of Torridcannon Dragon. Grade 2, intercept 5k shield, 10k base. Act Van or rear once per turn. Counterblast 1 and put a normal unit to bottom of deck. It can be a grade 3, it can be a grade 2, it can be a grade 1. Choose one of your opponent's grade 2 or less rear guards, retire it, and if your hand is 4 or less, draw a card. That ability comes in so handy, more than you think it does. And that might be saying something about how I play, but like, whew, counterblasting 1 sets something to bottom, okay, and killing something, yeah, that's easy. But half the time I use that, I always have 4 or less hand cards, and I guess you could say that's because I hate not getting its full effect off, so I will willingly keep it in hand until I can use it right. But that draw is always like a top deck or always something amazing I need in that moment or something that comes back to save me in the end game. I don't know why Torrid's 1 draw always saves me, but it does. Like, he's the definition of an anime top deck. So, or like his skill is the definition of an anime top deck. So 2 copies of Torrid, because on several occasions it has saved my ass. The only reason why it's not at more is because Blazing Flare can kind of nuke the rear guards and you can just set up pressure with Garan, and typically no one's gonna call multiple rear guards when like Blazing Flare is staring them down and you have a whole extra deck of retirers. Like, I really wish that there were more options besides retirers in Kagero, but there's not really. It was either Overlord support or which is just standing support, or more retire support. And I guess retire support is fine. I just wish there was a slightly more cards that focus less on retiring. But either way, Torrid's really good to have as it gets you a rear guard kill and a draw, so 2 copies. 3 copies of Bellicosity Dragon. 10k base, 5k shield, grade 2 with intercept. Auto Van or rear. When your opponent's rear guard is retired during your turn, the ceiling gets +5 for the turn. I shouldn't need to explain why this is here, but if you don't understand why this is here, Blazing Flare, nuke 5 rear guards, skill this thing, +5 for each thing nuked, 5 times 5 is 25, 35k, this thing's at 45 right now. If you have a force 2 on it, this is 45 double crit on its own. If that didn't explain to you why this is here, then you need to go you need to pause this video, go take a good, long, hard look at Kagero, and then understand why this is here. 3 copies. 4 copies of Wyvern Strike Doha are questionable, like, main grade 2 to call on rear. Guaranteed main grade 2 to call on rear, but not like main grade 2 in general. Grade 2, intercept 5k shield, 9k base, auto rear guard when placed from hand, counterblast 1, search your deck up to 1, Wyvern Strike Garan, call it to rear guard and shuffle your deck. Really nice that we can just search the deck for Garan to the point where you don't need this in hand. You can just send it to bot. You can send any copy you get in your opening hand to bottom, and as long as you got a Doha, you can just fetch it right back, because Blazing Flare doesn't cost counterblast. So if you just sit on Blazing Flare the entirety of the game, you have no counterblast on Van, which is really nice. And it continues rear guard during the battle of the attack. If your opponent has no rear guards, once more, really easy to do in this deck, because either Torrid will do the job for you, your backup grade 3 will do the job for you, or just Blazing Flare will do the job for you. Your opponent cannot call normal units from their hand to guard circle, so only triggers. Even if this thing's a 5k drop, they're gonna have to drop a 15 or 20 for this shit if they got no rear guards. Best part is, this doesn't matter what grade they're at. You can do this when they're at grade 2. So if you're at grade 2 rushing your opponent, I feel for them, because a lot of people won't call cards to rear guard when they're at grade 2. 4 copies of Doha, because he gets you a unit that can get you a soul at not that much cost of a counterblast, and can also just say fuck you if they have no rear guards. 4 copies of Break Breath Dragon. 10k base, grade 2, intercept, 5k shield. Auto rear. At the end of the battle of the attack, if your opponent's rear guards retired this turn, retire, draw a card. So, really easy to pull off, considering there's cards that nuke the board, there are cards that can nuke 1 unit. It is a free retire and a draw. Cool. And auto, when it's rolled upon, choose one of your opponent's rear guards, retire it. If you did not retire, draw a card. Okay, so either 1 rear guard dies, or you get to draw a card because they're expecting field nuke galore and they don't want to spam out of field and they're fine with giving you a draw. Yeah, there's not really much of an option here. Either you just give your opponent a free draw, which, from my experience, one draw can screw someone over a lot, or you lose a rear guard, which is going to set off the loop of Bellicosity and it gaining exponential numbers and going into instant PG fodder within 5 seconds of existing. Yeah, you know, this thing's really good. Now, if only Bellicosity said when any rear guards retire, because if it did, you could just use this with Break Breath and then get more power, but Break Breath's pretty good. Get you draws regardless of where it is on board and can get you a rear guard kill. And it's our obviously main grade 2 ride target for, I was about to say the same thing again. Yeah, our main grade 2 ride target. 4 copies. Grade 3 time, baby. 4 copies of Dual Axe Archdragon. Grade 3, Twin Drive, Force Gift, 13k base, Act, Vanguard, Counterboss 1, and discard a card. That is the cheapest cost I've ever seen for what it does. Retire all the rear guards in your opponent's back row, and until end of turn, when your opponent would call a card from hand to guard circle, he or she must call 2 or more at the same time. So, pay only a Counterblast of 1 and discard of 1, which isn't that much to me, to nuke their back row. And then for the rest of the turn, like not just for this unit's battle, but for every battle this turn, your opponent must guard with 2 or more if they were to call cards from hand to guard circle. So you shove this in with 2 Dohas on this side, and let's just assume that they have no front or rear guard circles. You shove this in with 2 Dohas on this side. That's a grand total of 6 cards from hand to guard circle, and because they presumably have no rear guards, 4 of those have to be trigger units. Archdragon is a finisher in this deck. It's either a grade 3 and the best part is it doesn't matter what your opponent's grade is at because you can use whenever you feel like it. So this thing is both a finisher in the late game and a finisher in the early game when your opponent expects you to bring out Blazing Flare. 4 copies, never underestimate this. 4 copies of Blazing Flare Dragon, our last grade 3 and our main grade 3. Grade 3, Twin Drive, Force Gift. I really love that art. Like the art, like the background is, I don't know how to put it. I know transparent is not the word that I'm looking for, but like it's so cool. It's very light. It's not like the main thing of the card, but it still makes the card pop. The wings look so realistic. The chest looks weird to me, but I still think it looks cool. We got the 3 machine guns over here with the little clip thing over there. We have the sword, which is really nice, and him just stabbing it forward. We have another sword down here. Is that another sword I see, or is that just the angle he's holding at? Then he has one down here. Yeah, Blazing Flare looks cool as hell. Anyways, Act, Vanguard, or rear guard. It's not just Vanguard, it's or rear guard, so it can be on both. Once per turn, Soul Blast 1 or more. Choose one of your opponent's rear guards for each Soul Blast 1 paid for this cost and retire it. And if it was on Van and you Soul Blasted 5 or more, your opponent removes all gift markers from their hand and circles. So if it's on Van and you Soul Blast 5, they lose every gift and everything on their board. And the best part is you can choose the units that are retired. So if you're playing against an Excel deck and they have a full board, you can just choose the units that aren't on Excel markers, and then they still lose the Excel markers, which then proceeds for the units to die. But I want to let it be clear, because, I mean, granted, the gift marker effect doesn't activate if it's on Van, but because of how it works, you could just ride Dual Axe Archdragon in the early game, call a Doha, use its skill to get a Garan, use Archdragon, kill their back row. Let's just say they had 2 rear guards in the front row, call Blazing Flare to another rear guard circle, Soul Blast 2, nuke their front row, boom, they have nothing. And best part is about all that, you can use it during your first grade 3 turn, even if your opponent's at grade 2. Does that seem fair? No. Is it? No. But is it fair for this deck? Yes. And then Auto Van rear. When it attacks, Soul Charge 1, and if your opponent's Vanguards are grade 3 or greater and they have no rear guards, gets plus 10. So you get guaranteed Soul Charge, and then this is where they decide to put the grade 3 restricting effect at. If they're at grade 3, now it gets the plus 10. Oh, okay, and they have no rear guards. Yes, okay, Bushy. Yes, that's fine. You know, not put the grade 3 restriction on the boy who can nuke a back row and make 6-card guard restrict. No grade 3 restriction on nuking the board and gift removing. No grade 3 restriction on guard restricting. No, Bushy. No, it's fine. Yes, lock down the 10k skill. That's really gonna show them. That's gonna stop them from being broken. Needless to say, there are multiple ways to play this, and there are multiple ways for it to make your opponent hate you. If you don't want your opponent to hate you, here's what you do. You take this deck and you lock it in the deepest parts of your closet, never to see the light of day again, because this thing is really annoying to fight against and really funny to use. when you see your opponent cry, and implying that I made my opponents cry. And then we have our gifts: 5 force 1s, 5 force 2s. Force 1, when acquired, goes on Vanguard rearguard, and the unit on that circle gets plus 10. It can be stacked and put on the same circle. So if you have 1 on the circle, the unit on it gets plus 10. If you have 3 on the same circle, plus 30. If you have 5, plus 50, etc. And Force 2, it also goes on Vanguard rearguard acquired, and the original critical of the unit on there becomes 2. It cannot be stacked. You can still put them on the same circle, but they won't like become 1 critical, it becomes 3, because it says the original critical, not plus 1 critical. If it did, then this deck would be a lot more broken, and so would a very certain fucking deck from Genesis. So Force 2 is objectively better just because, like, this deck doesn't need power. It has, if they have to guard at all, it's their Death Wish, because Bellicosity is a straight up PG fodder. This one is straight up 2 triggers. This is, or sorry, just a trigger. This one, if it's on Vanguard, is just a 2 to everything that swings this turn that they have to guard. If you put them at 5 damage beforehand, then they're screwed. This one is just a nuke the board, and granted has no pressure beyond that, but wants them not to guard because they want to commit hand to rear guard again. Just Force 2. Just pick Force 2. Just rush them down. You don't need power when you can just force more hand cards out of them, pun intended. And then Quick Shield, when one of you attacks plus 5k for the battle. Okay, 5k shield that you normally use for discard fodder of either Lava Flow or Dual Arch over here, but still, you keep the Quick Shield around just in case you want it. And that's the deck. I hope you guys enjoyed. Yeah, anyone who says that Blazing Flare ain't a main grade 3, you might be right, you might be wrong. I built a deck with it as a main grade 3, does pretty good. But also, remember, you can just shove this in with Dual Arcs and Doha, do a combo play and leave them with nothing on their board when they're at grade 2, and suddenly you've got an attack swinging for 23 double crit, and attack swinging for 13 and a soul charge, and then an attack that swings for no normal units, and all of them are, if they're guarding any of them, they have to throw down 2 or more cards from hand for each one. Yeah, this deck's fair. Yeah, good job, Bushy. You know, you made a real faux deck here. You know, I think reverse. I think Dauntless Reverse can just take a step down. Jokes aside, this deck is actually really good. It is still very fun. It's definitely not as good as Dauntless, because Dauntless alone can just make everything impossible to pass. But this deck's still very fun, and I do definitely suggest you pick it up because it's probably going to be really cheap, minus Doha and Garan. So hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, donate to the Patreon, join Discord, follow Twitch, and I'll see you on the next one. Don't forget to stand up your Vanguards.